seconds, and Tyler Shepardson is off and rolling with this week's episode of OTP.
Is this where the damn drumming and the music kicks in?
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody. This is another episode of On the Pipe Podcast. You are joining me for what is the return of OTP Tuesdays. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepardson, and I want to welcome you all out. I am so excited to bring you this episode. Why am I excited, you ask? Why is this episode happening, you ask? It is because racing is officially back in our lives. The 2021 season has officially begun. The first National Enduro of the year has taken place. It is over. The rain stayed away, the dust stayed down, and the race was able to complete. And that means we're back, baby. We're back racing. In this COVID-infested world, we begin 2021, and I can't be more excited. So, with the return of racing with the return of racing, in turn, becomes the return of On the Pipe Podcast and OTP Tuesdays. So I've been trying to get everything dialed in for the season. I have had a heck of an off season. I want to give you guys more details. I might go ahead and do that in this episode. Haven't decided yet. But first, I want to thank our good friends over at Armored Graphics. You can find them at Armored Graphics on social media or armoredgraphics.com. They have been the longtime show sponsor. Appreciate everything that they do. They designed our logo. They did the JGR Suzuki's graphics for the past several years, and they're making a return into the off-road world. They're sponsoring the Middies Hair Scrambles this year. They're going to have a booth set up. They're also going to have a booth set up at some other races that we'll get into here in a moment, but they're making the return back into the woods world. If you have not checked out their work, you should check it out. It's some of the best graphics you'll ever see. So big thanks to our friends over at Armored Graphics. Also, big thanks to our intro, Justin Hill, the former Supercross West Lights champion, as well as Devin Byram, the former co-host and co-founder of this very podcast that you're listening to right now. They created that intro music. That was pretty cool of them, and it's cool to play it. But racing is back. I can't reiterate it enough. We're back with another episode of OTP Tuesday, and this one is going to be a good one. We're going to have a couple of the friends of the show stopping by. Trevor Bollinger, the Burke County Intimidator. We have not seen him in action in quite some time. He did race the last GNCC last year, just to kind of feel things out about how his knee was recovering from ACL surgery. Turns out, very shortly after that, he actually tore his other ACL and went through another ACL surgery. We catch up with Tebow and check in with him and see what all is going on in his world and when we can expect his return to racing. Also stopping by is the man of the hour, once again, a very close friend of the podcast, Steward Baylor Jr. He obviously won the Sumter Enduro, and he did it with the biggest gash in his back that I have ever seen in anyone's back. He kind of goes into some graphic detail about it in the interview. I think you're going to like it. I think you're going to like to hear what Stu has to say, as well as what Tebow, old Trevor Bollinger, has to say as well. And that is why I'm excited to bring you this episode. It's going to be a great one. So I hope you stick around and listen to those two interviews that we have coming up. We're just going to recap the race real quick. But I do want to ask you guys, hey, be a friend. Tell a friend. If you enjoy On the Pipe podcast, or you enjoy any of these interviews that you're about to hear, or you enjoy just getting a weekly recap of what is going on in the racing world each week, then go ahead and be a friend. Tell somebody about it. I hope you subscribe to this podcast if you have not subscribed already. Whatever you're listening to it on, there should be a subscribe button, whether you're on Apple Podcasts or you're on Stitcher, our iHeartRadio, Spotify. We're basically everywhere. So wherever you're listening to us, YouTube, anything like that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and let a buddy know if you don't mind. We got big plans coming up for the new year, but you don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about racing. So to start things off in 2021, it was the National Enduro taking place in the sands of South Carolina, the Manchester OHV Trails. They are state maintained. You can ride them at any point throughout the year during hunting season. I think it's Sunday only, but right now they're open all the time. So if you want to go down there and race, you can. That is also where a lot of the Carolina XC series has ran at over the winter. Zach Hayes started up that series down there. They're doing a GP racing format. Good turnouts, good tracks, and good environments, but they race all around that Manchester area and McBee, South Carolina, some places like that. So that is something to check out in the offseason into 2021. But at the beginning of 2001, we are racing and taking the win, striking first, if you will, in the 2021 National Enduro Series. It is 4-time National Enduro champion Stu Baylor. Goes down there and grabs the victory. First race of the year. Now, Stu has been one of those guys that we've seen through the ringer over the past year. Obviously, his knee surgery, changing teams, changing bikes, riding about every color bike that you could think of before finally landing on that Yamaha where he came back and had a dominant end to his season. He's now had an offseason to prepare, but you'll hear here in a little bit, there hasn't been as much preparation as you might think, as Stu let us know. But nevertheless, he goes down there and gets the job done, takes the round one victory. Going into the final test of the day. So in test 5, he had a big crash, and I'm sure you have all seen the photos by now. Every single thing that you've seen in the past couple days that had Stu Baylor in it, you've had to click a warning to see it. That's how bad this cut was, but he posted pictures of it. It is nasty. It was a deep cut. That happened in test 5 of 6 tests in the weekend. And he was able to gut it out and get to the end of the race where he ended up getting a pretty decisive victory over his little brother and defending National Enduro champion Grant Baylor. So Grant Baylor is going to be your second place finisher on the weekend. And Craig DeLong, your defending Pro 2 Series champion, is going to be your third place rider overall. So I think the way that those National Enduro rules lay out, that since he was that Pro 2 champion and had a good overall finish at the end of the year, I think he is now essentially forced to race that pro class. But I don't want to go out and say that Craig DeLong is someone that is forced to race that pro class. I think Craig would prefer to be in that pro class, and he's not there to wrap up medals. He's there to get faster. He's there to push himself against the best in the world, and that is exactly what he did as he rounds out your overall podium in that pro class at Sumter. Now, moving into the Pro 2 class, taking home the win and really making a statement as to what can be for this year ahead of us, Jesse Ansley. Jesse Ansley is someone that we have seen have a great amount of success in the past, grabbing several youth championships at the GNCC Series. He actually signed a contract while he was on small bikes to race big bikes. He won the 200A championship, and then he won 2 back-to-back XC3 championships before moving into that XC2 class. We've talked about it before. We've talked with Jesse before. He kind of had some growing pains going into that XC2 class, but what a statement he makes coming out the first round of the season of National Enduro. He is your 250 Pro or Pro 2 winner on the weekend. Jesse Ansley taking that home, so super pumped for him and super excited to see the things that he may have to come here in the future. Taking home second place is our reigning and defending GNCC XC3 champion. He was out at the National Enduro, Zach Hayes. Zach, we just mentioned, is the one that started the Carolina XC Series. He lives in that area. He's used to the sand. He is used to Manchester. He's used to Sumter. He proves that. He gets second place on a 125. And then taking home The third place and the final position on the Pro 2 podium, it was Tyler Vore. The working class hero himself, Tyler Vore, goes out there and grabs a podium there at the first round in that Pro 2 class. So super pumped to see Tyler on the box there. Also super pumped to see Jesse Ansley get that win and Zach Hayes in that second place position. Moving things over to our women's pro class, Shelby Turner, the resident Canadian, coming down playing in the sands of South Carolina. I doubt there's much riding to be had up in Canada at this time of the year. So she comes down where it's a little bit warmer and grabs the women's elite women's pro win. So that was awesome to see. She's been coming down, dabbling in more and more racing over the past year. She comes down at the first round of the National Enduro and takes home the women's pro win. So I'm sure that has to have a lot of confidence building in it, and I'm sure that she'll be looking forward to the next National Enduro as well. I would imagine she's going to be down here racing GNCCs, but I'm not sure. But in the meantime, she did make her way to the top step of the women's pro podium in the first round of the National Enduro Series. Rachel Guttish, someone that we have talked about several times in the past on the show. She is your second place women's pro rider on the weekend. Rachel is one of those girls, she splits time between extreme racing, so hard enduro racing, as well as National Enduro, as well as GNCC, as well as basically anything else that she can do. So Rachel is a very talented girl on a dirt bike, and she proves that to be the case. So she comes out 2021, starts her season off with a second place finish at the Sumter National Enduro, and Corey Steed rounds out your women's pro class podium. Awesome to see Corey out there racing. She's got a new deal for the year as well. She'll be racing a Babbitt's Online Kawasaki, so she'll be supported by that Babbitt's Kawasaki team and will be contending in the women's pro classes throughout the year. Awesome to see her start off with a statement and get that third place finish. Last year, she was on a TM 144 two-stroke, so I imagine it's quite the change jumping over to that KX 250X, I'm assuming, for the year. But I'm excited to see what she's able to do with that and excited to see how she does on that new ride. Now, a couple important things to note. Our reigning, defending, two-time National Enduro champion, Mackenzie Tricker, is still out rehabbing a knee injury. She has not made her way completely back to racing yet, but she did saddle up and ride a test to salvage some points. So Mackenzie Tricker did go out there and do a test. And then Taylor Jones also coming off some off-season surgeries and injury recovery. She comes out and grabs fourth place in that women's pro class. So not sure how the day shook out between them. I was checking live timing and scoring in between, but Taylor's going to end up in that fourth place position, and no doubt she's going to be hungry to improve those results going forward. But that is the way that things panned out. A couple other interesting things to note throughout the weekend. Josh Toth, a guy that's been on the podcast, a friend of the show, a friend of friends of mine, he went out there with a broken hand. Now, keep in mind, over the past couple seasons, Josh has broke his leg twice, bent the titanium rod in his leg. I think he broke his wrist, I'm not sure. Right now, he has a broken hand. He just broke his hand. I think within the past week, he broke his hand. And then he went out to Sumter National Enduro and raced the entire National Enduro at Sumter with a broken hand. That makes no sense to me. I don't understand how he did it. He is an Iron Man. He was able to go out there and finish the race and do all that with a broken hand. Also, another important thing to note over the weekend, there was a little bit of a concern of Ben Kelly, another XC1 rider, an open class pro rider. I think he had a little bit of a crash that tweaked his knee a little bit. I have heard that everything is all good. There are no injuries, so it is not an just a little bit of an ouchie coming out of that Ben Kelly KTM camp. So really hoping that everything is all good there. As we mentioned, it sounds like everything's checked out and everything is in the clear, but no doubt this is shaping up to be one of the best seasons of racing that we have ever seen and will ever see. And we're going to do a little bit of a GNCC preview show next week, so we'll get into that then. But yeah, just an exciting weekend to start things off and get things going here in 2021 with the Sumter National Enduro. Stu Baylor, as we mentioned, he'll be on the show, and he grabbed that overall win. Now, one thing that Stu does allude to at the end of his interview, which I guess I might as well go ahead and address it now, is I know there's a lot of confusion. I know there's a lot of stuff up in the air about what is happening with the Full Gas Sprint Enduros as well as the new Sprint Enduro series that formed. So it's been kind of a messy situation, and I don't want to get into the details of it quite yet, but the way it's looking right now is that Full Gas will be transitioning to a GP format. So we'll be running a GP format, so half moto with a little bit of woods, doing 2 motos throughout the day, and that will decide the overall. So look for some news coming out soon. I don't want to announce anything just quite yet. We're trying to cross our T's and dot our I's. But yes, I am involved in that. I know a lot of people have heard through the grapevine. So although I can't really address it in full detail yet, I get a lot of messages and a lot of texts and a lot of questions as to what is going on. Just know that this year there will be a GP series that will be coming to the East Coast, specifically the southern part of the East Coast. So I'm super excited about that and super excited to fill you guys in on all the information as it becomes available. But rest assured, you will hear it here first. But yeah, that is the plan as of now. We'll have a full-blown GP series. It's going to be fun. We got a lot of different ideas, a lot of stuff going at it. Just trying to wrap up with some legal stuff, wrap up with some sponsor stuff. But yeah, just be on the lookout and know that there's going to be a lot of fun to have this year in racing. But with that being said, we mentioned earlier in the show, Trevor Bollinger went through the ringer. He dealt with some stuff over the offseason and then dealt with some even more stuff. So we're going to get into that interview with no further delay. A man that's been a little bit out of the spotlight, but looking to come back here in 2021. Rockstar Husqvarna's Burke County Intimidator, Trevor Bollinger. Tebow, how's things going tonight, man?
Yeah, it's good. I'm just chilling here at the Coastal House with Craig, and yeah, just getting ready to go back to North Carolina tomorrow.
Good deal. So you're down in Florida right now, is that right?
Yeah, yep.
I gotta ask, man, did you ride a bicycle down there or did you drive?
This time I drove.
All right, good deal.
Last time I was in Florida, I rode a bicycle, so.
I know, that's what I was going to say. Last time I talked to you, you were about to ride a bicycle to Florida, so figured it was worth the question. But we were just talking a second ago, and you said you really didn't know what you were doing until today. So I'm excited to hear about that, and really just for the whole thing, for those that are listening, which I'm sure everyone is aware of, you tore your ACL about a year ago today because it was at the Sumter National Enduro. You go through the process to heal up from that. You get surgery, healing up from that. I believe you're probably about 11 months post-op from that ACL surgery. And then basically not long after you were cleared to ride a dirt bike again, you tear the other ACL, and you just had surgery at that one at the beginning of December. So I guess take us through that whole process and what the past two or 3 months have looked like healing from that, and what your plans are. As you said, you just found out today what they are.
Yeah, so had the first ACL done, which is on my bad knee. So I've had now I've had 5 surgeries and 3 ACLs on that knee. So that was it's pretty tough to get through that one, and I actually didn't know how tough it was until unfortunately I tore my other ACL in November, and now I'm going through that, and it's been a lot easier. You know, that other one is still sometimes I wonder which knee I just hurt. You know, oddly enough, I think today actually marks 2 months post-op on my right knee, which is the recent knee that I messed up, and yeah, it's been a heck of a year. You know, it was just one of those things that was freak. I was at a motocross track and just got cross-threaded on the face of the jump, and just the way I hit, you know, it wouldn't have mattered which knee it was. It was something had to give, and it was just unfortunate at the time. And but luckily enough, I'm looking to only miss one race this year. I'm actually going back home tomorrow, and then I have a doctor's appointment on Monday. And if it was up to me, I would get out there and race big buck. But my team's been behind me 100%, and they just feel like I'd have 3 days on the bike before I go and race for 3 hours, and I haven't really had a whole bunch of time on a bike in a year. So they think they just want me to, with not racing big buck, that'll give me an extra 3 weeks. There's a lot that goes into a race. You gotta kind of taper down before the race, and then you gotta recover after the race. So if I miss big buck, then that'll give me about 3 more weeks to get some seat time before Florida. And then Florida and Georgia are back to back, so I didn't really. It makes sense to miss big buck. Then I'm not in such a big hole. Going to those back to back races, and never an even bigger hole than I'm going to be anyway. Because obviously, you can lift all the weights in the world and do all the bicycling you want. There's nothing like riding and racing. So I'm going to be in a hole either way. But I'm just pumped. I have a plan, and I can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel now.
Yeah, man. So, 2 months post-op, and that's the first thing. So when this thing first happened and you were first getting surgery, I think you actually mentioned in a post that you were planning on racing this year. And I think my first thought, along with everyone else's first thought, is how in the world is that going to be possible? But as you just mentioned, this knee seems to be healing up a little bit better than the last one was. As you mentioned, you said your bad knee. I imagine that there was a good and a bad, and now probably a bad and a worse. But as far as the original one, you said that this one is kind of healing up a little bit better. How does it feel right now? Or I guess how do each one of them feel? You mentioned some days you can't tell which one's the one that was just hurt.
Yeah, my left knee, which is my bad knee that I hurt about a year ago, I've had so many surgeries on. When I heard it at Sumter last year, it was kind of the final straw for it. And, not too many people know, but I went to a bunch of different doctors and had 3 or 4 doctors tell me that they wouldn't even mess with it, and they're knee specialists. So, that was a tough one to swallow, but luckily I found the right doctor and, got that thing fixed up. But my 2-month post-op knee, it's coming along good. It's every day, it amazes me how much stronger I get. I mentioned if I missed big buck, I'd have 3 weeks. Well, 3 weeks ago from the day I wasn't even riding outside of my bicycle, and now I've did, probably 2 weeks worth of training on it, 50, 60-mile rides, and it's crazy the leaps and bounds you can make when you're training and actually working on something. Like when you dedicate everything to getting better. So, and I kind of knew that coming in. That's why I was optimistic of racing round 1. And I still feel like I could go out there and score some points, which was top 20. But at the end of the day, I know I'm not going to be going there fighting for a podium or a top 5. So what's missing one race, and everyone's going to have a bad race throughout the year. So what's missing one so I can be better in Florida and Georgia. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Florida's a hell of a race to come back to, just with all the whoops and the million squats that you got to do to get around that place for 3 hours. But I want to go back real quick to the most recent one, your right knee. So you had your bikes and everything, and you were just planning to come back from your left knee, the ACL surgery, and then your doctor actually told you to hold off a little bit and push back your riding date of when he wanted you back on a bike. And then so that got pushed back, and you started riding again, and then the right knee happens. How long were you back riding a bike before the right knee was injured?
Let's see. I raced the last UNCC, and I had maybe 2 or 3 weeks on the bike before then, and that was in September. So that was kind of a last minute deal just to try to get my feet wet.
Mm-hmm.
So I had all of October on the bike and most of November. I think I got hurt on the 23rd, and I actually did a few local Mid-East. And so I had a fair amount of time. I wouldn't say I had a whole lot of time, but, I was getting back comfortable on the bike. And like I said, it's just a freak thing,
Yep.
It's part of it.
Yeah, so basically just getting back in the swing of things. Now, you mentioned that you're going back home tomorrow, and if you had raced Big Buck, you'd only have 3 days on the bike. So have you not ridden a dirt bike at all since your last surgery?
No, I haven't ridden at all. I just started bicycling outside 2 weeks ago. So, and who knows what the doctor's going to say on Monday, but, I feel like he's going to release me. So we'll just see what goes from there. But as of right now, I'm 100% in on being at Florida round 2.
Dang. Yeah, so that extra 3 weeks is going to be monumental as far as getting seat time and everything. Like you mentioned, did the same doctor do both surgeries? So did you go back to the same doctor for your right knee that did your left knee?
Yeah, I did. He's actually out of West Virginia, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you and your teammate Thad Duvall both battling knee injuries over the past year. And so Rockstar Husky, you got that deal and everything was looking promising and looking up, and then this knee happens, and then the right knee happens, and Rockstar and the Husky team has kind of stuck behind you through all of this. What does that mean to have that team support and have that team believe in you so much and work with you through these injuries? I'm sure that's got to be instrumental to your mentality coming back from these injuries, that your job is there and that these people are still rooting for you.
Yeah, for sure, dude. It definitely gives me a peace of mind. I actually signed my current 2-year deal when I can remember I was up in West Virginia. I just left the doctor's appointment, and they let me know that they wanted to sign me again because my 2 years was up at the end of this year. So it was nice. It was nice getting that reassurance that they still think I'm the guy, and for them to sign me when I'm getting ready to go into the ninth was pretty. It's pretty reassuring that they're standing behind me. So that means a lot. And just they've been unbelievable. How many teams do you know that would do that with someone that's getting ready to go into the knife?
Yeah, and that's something that I've thought about, and I'm sure it's something that you think about continuously, and that's why I just wanted to ask that question, because it is really cool to see that support and to still see them sticking by you, because obviously they see the potential that you see and that everyone else sees as well. Now, as far as taking an extra 3 weeks to come back, obviously it's going to be back-to-back rounds. You got a Florida that's a tough round, and then Georgia right after. You touched on it real quick about if you were going to Big Buck, trying to salvage points, and it's kind of hard to say how you're going to be feeling in a month from now, but just as of right now, before you get back on the bike, just knowing what you know now, when you go to Florida, is it going to Florida to salvage points and get top 20s and get back acclimated, or are you going up there to basically get the best results that you can?
I'd say a little bit of both. The biggest thing is I don't want to rush it. I'm already behind the 8 ball, and this an ACL surgery is supposed to be 4 to 9 months. So
at least
me even racing at 3 months is pretty pushing it pretty good. So I would say up until Camp Coker, which is around 3 or 4, I think 4. I think up until then I'll just be on survival mode, really. I mean, if I'm feeling good and I'm there in the hunt, I'm going to go for it, but I'm not going to push the issue when I'm not feeling it. So I would say after Camp Coker, I'll be back to close to 100%, and that's when I'll try to turn it up and get some good finishes for the rest of the year.
Good deal, man. Super glad to hear it. Glad to hear that everything is going well in terms of your recovery and training and getting ready. I think that pro row is a lot better with you in it, so I'm really excited to see you come back and work your way back through this minor setback, but hopefully get the ball rolling, and this will all just be a distant memory, and we'll see you back on those GNCC podiums.
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait. Thanks for calling and having me on.
Yeah, man. Thanks a ton for your time, and look forward to seeing you down in the sands of Florida.
Heck yeah, thanks.
All right, we'll see you. So big thanks once again to Trevor Bollinger taking some time out of his schedule to fill us in and let us know what is going on. Trevor is a guy that we've seen dominate the XC2 class and get an XC2 championship, and he's been a guy that we've seen continuously work and improve those results in that XC1 class, switching from the Honda to the Husqvarna. Now Husqvarna is standing behind him, like we mentioned. He's been on the podium, still hungry for overall wins, so I'll be super pumped to see Bollinger back on the bike, back out there racing, and hopefully that knee will heal up soon. As he mentioned around that Camp Coker time, he expects to be about 100% and going back at it. So just hoping everything goes well for him and we get to see that full potential of Trevor Bollinger. Now, going past that, we're going to go ahead and move things over to our second interview of the night. As we mentioned, can't thank these guys enough, Trevor Bollinger and Stu Baylor, for coming on the show. If you enjoyed any part of any one of these interviews, go ahead and post it on social media. Post it on Instagram. Do whatever you want. Tag us in it. Tag Stu in it. Tag Trevor in it. And just let a friend know. We're really trying to grow this thing and really just trying to be the outlet for off-road news. And so that is the goal going forward. And now that race season has begun, we're going to be coming at you every single week, letting you know what is going on. But without further delay, let's get into our second interview of the night with the Round 1 National Enduro Sumter winner on the weekend, kind of the man of the hour, going through another injury that we're going to be talking about here tonight. But starting round off with a win, good friend of the podcast, Steward Baylor. Stu, how's things going tonight?
Little sore, little beat up, but plugging away. Been out at the track all day, making new tracks and watching all the guys get to do what I wish I was doing. But it's still good. We're getting there.
All right, so I mean, my first question I feel like is a pretty obvious one, but what in the world happened? I mean, I don't want to say that it overshadowed your win because it's really big to come out and grab a win to open the year off, but a large talk with the win is this flesh wound you got on your back. So what happened? How did that thing come up?
It was honestly really just a crash that I've had before and shouldn't have been as bad as it was. I clipped a tree on my side. It was early in test 5, which is a really soft rutted test. I just came into a rut. It had a soft hole in it. It was mid straightaway in a really fast section, and when I hit the sinkhole, it just kind of threw me a little bit left, and I clipped a tree on my left side, which blew my hand off the bar. And when it did, I was still holding on to my right, and I pulled the bar basically towards myself. I mean, when you have a crash at speed, everybody, anybody that understands, I guess, it's like time slows down for those, that millisecond, and you can see, you know everything is going on. You have 1,000 thoughts in less than a second. Am I good? Did I break something? What's going on? And at that point, I knew that I had pulled my handlebar. It tucked the front end. I was still holding on my right side. The whole left side of my body was blowing off the bike, and my tire tucked, and my body was facing backwards, and I caught the end of my bar in my handguard, and it just shoved it in, and it was a third or fourth gear section, a really fast section, and just a blunt impact of the bar blew a hole in my back, and I went tumbling, rolling, and I landed pretty hard on my shoulder, and it today my shoulder is almost as sore as my side. But when I realized what I was going on, like I knew I was hurt. I could feel the cold. I could feel the blood. And as I crawled back on the bike, I took off, and I reached around and I stuck my hand back there, and my fingers went in. And when my fingers went in, I knew it was bad. I knew it was definitely something that would have to be stitched up. And as far as I could tell, everything else was good. Like, the first thought I had was broken collarbone, end of my season. Like, it's I hit my shoulder so hard, I was a little worried about everything else. But I came in at the end of that test, and I rode a little lazy there for a mile or two, and I realized, like, all right, I got to make up this time that I just lost in here. And I ended up winning that test, and went into the last test after a good break there in the pits. I told everybody, I don't want to look at it. I don't need to know if it's bad. I know it's bad enough for stitches, but I don't know if it's, one fingers or one fist. And, it was, or one finger or one fist. And I knew one finger went in there, and my hand was covered in blood, but I wasn't bleeding down my leg or out of my pants, too bad. So I knew it wasn't, I didn't catch anything major. And, I was definitely sore, but we had one test left, and I was able to go in there and just kind of sit on cruise control. I had a good enough cushion at that point that I knew I just needed to nail my marks and not go down again. So rode really, really smooth, thoughtful in that last test, and was able to pull off the win. And as soon as I got done, we looked at it. Everybody said you need to go to the hospital, but you can't win a race and not step on the podium. So we got the podium wrapped up quick. But luckily, they let the pro guys get up there before the other classes, which we normally don't do. So able to get to the hospital, which didn't really matter that we set up that process. I sat in the hospital for 4.5 hours and got absolutely no care. So, with a hole that I sweat in and sand was in, knowing that I'm staph infection prone after last year with my pick line incident, I was pretty worried. We went to the second hospital after 4.5 hours, and they rushed me right back to back, got scans in it. They stuck their fingers around and realized that there was a lot of tissue covering up. The hole was a lot deeper than they realized. It was almost 2 inches deep. And they did some internal stitching after all their tests. They did internal and then external stitching, but left it loose stitching so that it could drain. Hopefully we don't get infection, but the chances really high, being infection prone already. So it's, I'm far from in the clear with this thing, but right now the wound looks really good, and they did a great job with it there. So hopefully I'm in the clear.
Dude, that is absolutely unreal and a lot to take in right there. But when you talk about toughness, it's hard to find someone that is as mentally as strong as you, basically going through everything you did last year. And so you're saying in between test 5 and test 6, you didn't even look at this thing, didn't care to look at it, nothing, just knew it was there and knew you had to keep going.
Yeah, my wife was standing there, and she's got a loud mouth, so which I love her, but God Almighty, sometimes she drives me crazy. So it was one of those days where she was driving me crazy, and she saw blood, and she wanted to check it out, and she was worried about everything. And I told her, I said, we came here for one job, and that job is to win. And right now we're sitting in a position to win this thing. If it was something that needed medical attention, I don't want to know. I don't care to know. I can ride with it at this point. We'll worry about it after the race. So that's what we did. And I got into a little spat with her because she brought it up again, and I said, listen, go sit in the truck. We're not doing this. So, I guess I don't know if it's tough or stupid one, but one of them for sure. So I did what I had to do, and I just hope that it was the right decision. Hopefully, it didn't jeopardize me getting an infection. But at that point, it already had dirt in it. Randy Hawkins was standing there, the team owner. So he put some paper towels over top of it to try to keep the dirt out. I think he was probably the only one that laid eyes on it at that point. And I didn't want to see his facial expression, and I didn't want to hear if it was bad or not. So, we went in that last test like we went into the first one, trying to win a national. So that's what we did.
Damn it! So I mean that right there is the definition of a championship mentality. Because just finishing that test, obviously you come away with the win at Sumter, get some much needed points there, and start your season off on the right foot. Where it seems like it would have been easy for a lot of people to just call it at that point and go get that medical attention. So that's insane that you're able to push through and get that done. But I mean, as far as the race goes, up until that point, I mean, I've seen a lot of people saying that it could be the best Sumter track that they've ever ridden. I mean, how was your race going up and to that point, and what'd you think of the track this year?
Honestly, it truly was probably the best Sumter track that I've ridden. It was a very big variation this year. There was some really rough stuff. There was some sandy stuff, but as a whole, there was a lot more dirt than normal. With the amount of rain that we got, a lot of people were worried that we would see muddy sections. But the last 2 years, or the last 3 years, I think we've got a lot of rain leading up to Sumter and had some pretty muddy tests. And Sumter Club kind of threw those tests out and put in a lot of fresh trail. They did a really good job taking out a lot of the face smackers. Obviously, the pro lines are a little bit different than the main line, so we're running one fine row over, different things like that. So we still get the face smackers, but the track flowed really well. Good variation of tight stuff with an open flowing track. And test 5 and 6, like even injured, I had a ball. Like they were really good tests. They're really fun, flowy, open, great dirt, very few stumps. Sumter's one of those places where you stay on the trail a lot of times because you're worried about catching that one stump and ending your day. This year I felt like we were able to shift over and we were able to find new lines. We were able to ride the track and not worry about the stumps. They did a good job marking the stumps that were there. So, yeah, it was. I said it there that day. I think it was the best Sumter that I had ridden since I think 2014. I believe was the last year that I was like, man, I really love this place. I've always done well there, but definitely been a couple years where I don't want to say the track sucked, but I wasn't impressed.
Yeah, and I mean that place is hit or miss, and there's a lot that goes on down there at Sumter. So for it to be such a good track, I'm sure helped play into your favor a lot. I know down at the Manchester OHV trails is somewhere that you frequent and somewhere that you ride a lot, and I mean it's definitely no secret that you and your brother Grant both are great in those conditions and great down at Sumter, and that showed over the weekend as you guys both went 1-2 to open up the season. You with 4 championships under your belt, Grant picking up the championship last year. I'm sure that's going to be a battle that we're all going to like to watch this year. You guys might not like it as much as you're going to be pushing each other throughout the year, but no doubt it's going to be one for all the fans to get involved with. But, I mean, last time that we talked, you were really just learning the new bike and getting back used to being on the bike and trying to figure out the Yamaha. Obviously, clicked off some GNCC wins, but didn't get as much time in the woods as far as national enduros are concerned. Now that you've had an entire off season to train on the bike and getting things right, and I know with the team deal, some things on the bike changed up as opposed to some of your previous sponsors and the new team sponsors coming in and all that kind of stuff. But having this whole off season to really prepare and get your bike ready and get more seat time, what has that meant, and how are you feeling with everything now going into the season?
I wish I could say that it was all rainbows and butterflies, but no, it's the bike is definitely a lot more prepared than we were last year. I think as far as that goes, like everything's ready there, but my body's not. We late December, I picked up my training pretty aggressively, and I knew something was off. I knew I wasn't recovering. I was feeling sick, and ended up getting Epstein-Barr. So that's a tough one to start the year out with. There's no cure for Epstein-Barr. There is no timeline on when it's going to pass. I've dealt with it in the past, and it throws a pretty major curveball at the off-season training.
What exactly is Epstein-Barr, and how does it affect you?
Epstein-Barr usually comes and just wipes out your immune system when you've overtrained and haven't paid attention to your immune system. So, in my case, this time I got COVID, which for me, obviously, it wasn't a big deal. I was riding through it. I had, basically a cold. It wasn't bad for me at all. But it did weaken my immune system, and I never really gave my body a rest. It came late November, and the first week of December is when I kick off my training. So, I didn't slow down. I didn't take the time off that I needed to. I wasn't taking the supplements that I needed to take, and it really wiped out my immune system, which then caused me to get Epstein-Barr, which I know a lot of riders have had it. Obviously, Ken Roxon's probably the known rider that has dealt with it, I think, multiple times, and been able to win Supercross races with it. So it's one of those things you just have to be a little bit smarter with your training, a little bit smarter with your recovery, your hydration. It sucks, but I've dealt with it in the past. I've won with it in the past, and it's just trying to be smart at this phase so that we can get over this thing and not drag it out, because it is one of those things where if I continue to train too hard, beat my body into the ground, it can worsen, and basically it wipes out your immune system, wipes out your body, takes all your energy, and your body doesn't recover. So you've got this muscle soreness, but it's part of it.
Damn, man. So it just seems like one thing compiled on top of another after coming back from everything that you went through last year. But I think you have the mentality that if it was easy and there wasn't those hurdles in the way, then it just wouldn't be worth it. But that's just another thing added, and now coupled that with the injury from yesterday. So still starting off with a win, so starting off on the right foot, but some things to overcome in the way. But wishing you luck with that, and I'm sure you're going to push through that. But I do want to ask real quick, and then I'll let you go. Last year, coming in, brand new team, dealing with all that stuff, it's the last year to beat Caleb Russell at the GNCCs. You know that it's going to be his last full season there. You're coming in at the time 3 times in a row National Enduro champion, so going for your 4th straight, your 5th championship. And you had all that stuff on your plate. So we talked at the beginning of last year, and you were hungry going into it and wanting to prove yourself and beat Caleb, as you said before. This year, obviously everyone knows how last year panned out for you with the knee injury and the whole entire road that you had to take to get back to where you are now. The change in the brands, coming in, winning 4 out of 5 GNCCs, still finishing 2nd in National Enduro points. Are you more hungry this year with an open GNCC front line, in essence, with Caleb being gone and you getting a reset on the National Enduro and trying to get back into that championship mix? Are you hungrier now going into this year with all that stuff and everything that you've been through?
No, not really. I don't know. I guess I've had a lot of life changes in the last 12 months, and I think the biggest thing for me is I want a GNCC championship with everything I've got. I always have. I would have loved to do it and be the one to dethrone Caleb last season. I felt like I had the speed. I felt like I was where I needed to be with my fitness. There was obviously a lot of other things that were lacking, and wasn't able to put it up there, and at least for the full season. But I think I proved at the end of the year that I definitely had it, and even at the beginning of the season, where I was, after Georgia, we had some major changes that took place after Big Buck, and going to Florida and Georgia, I felt like I was the guy to beat. And obviously we know it's Caleb, but in my mind, I knew that I could beat him at those tracks, and I felt like last year was the year that I could have done it. But when I started winning, I did it, I guess, knowing that I was going to win. I lined up in West Virginia, and I told everybody, we're going for a podium. We're going for a top 5. Haven't raced a GNCC in a long time. It's a big step to go into a GNCC without racing them. And a lot of us, you can train all season, but to race a GNCC at 3 hours, you almost race yourself into shape, and you steadily get in better shape. So I did everything I could to make sure I was ready, but I knew I was going to win that race. I knew I was going to win the rest of the races, and I fell short. I fell short there, and I didn't win. But in every race situation that I had played out in my mind, I feel like I was the best rider on that day. Not trying to be cocky by any means, but I lined up to win on those days, and this season, I've just got to carry that mentality in. It's, if you line up to win, whether you're first or fifth, it doesn't matter. You line up to win, and, that's kind of where I am. I wouldn't say that I'm hungry for it. I just want to win, plain and simple. It's not that I'm any more hungry than I am in the past, but I've got to prove a lot of people wrong. There's a lot of people, a lot of teams I called last year, a lot of guys that I tried to get something out of, and, they underestimated me. I knew what I was capable of. Obviously, my past results should have been, they should have looked at that. I mean, it's not like I haven't been a consistent top 3 guy, but nobody gave me a shot until Yamaha, and I'm gonna prove the rest of them wrong. And I come in with the mentality that I'm going to win. Anything less than that is not where I want to be. It's funny, you talked a little bit about Caleb, but Caleb and I grew up tight, spent a lot of time together, riding together, and Caleb was I've said it before, Caleb was an asshole. The reason Caleb was an asshole is because he was there for himself. He is there to win for himself, and that's I think the chip on your shoulder that you have to carry. You've got to line up for you and not really care about anything else or worry about any other circumstances. And I think that's a big part that I've missed in my career on the GNCC side. At National Enduros, I was there for me. I was there to win. And I lined up at a GNCC, and I was more worried about the little things. The what ifs, the what ands, and I could never wrap my mind around lining up to win a race until this year.
Well, you've definitely proved that mentality is everything, because as we mentioned, you ended last year with a statement, and you come back out swinging in 21 and make a statement as far as this National Enduro is concerned too. So, man, I wish you all the luck in the world. It's going to be an interesting season this year, and I'm sure you're going to be looking to continue right where you left off at the end of last season, and no doubt that we'll be seeing you up there on several podiums throughout the year for both series. But, yeah, man, I guess the last thing here is down at the Shoals. I've been telling everyone about it. That machine that you got, I tell everybody, no matter how much it rains, no matter what's going on, that track is going to be good. So I just want to give you an opportunity, just let people know what's going on down there at the Shoals, and how can people get down there and train and ride.
We the idea is a full training facility. We're not closing ourselves off from practicing anything else. We stay open almost every day. We're out there. There's somebody out there every day. You can ride every day. It is, we usually try to have one track prep, obviously, depending on the weather. But if it's raining, we're not prepping, but you're more than welcome to go ride in it. We train. We have weekly, monthly, daily training. We have afternoon groups, but it was a dream I had years ago when I started training kids when I got injured back in 2012, and I wanted to make the first off-road training facility, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. Obviously, we still do a lot on the moto side. I'm a believer that you've got to be well-rounded in the moto, is where a lot of us are a lot of the woods guys are lacking that extra skill to take it to the next level. So, we're doing open practices throughout the week. We've had a really good really good group of guys. Evan Smith and Ryder Lafferty are training here full time, and they clicked off 4th and 5th with some really good test times this weekend. So we got a small group of pros: Josh Strang, Lennon, Snodgrass, Ryan Sipes obviously been down for quite a bit, and it's always fun. We always try to keep it fresh, and I enjoy riding and my dozer more than my dirt bike, so I'm always building something new. But it was my dream facility, and luckily with my aunt and uncle, we were able to put everything together and turn what was going to be a cattle farm into the most badass dirt bike track around.
Man, it really is, and there's several different tracks there. There's a woods loop. There's all sorts of stuff. It's an awesome facility, and like I mentioned, I just wanted to give an opportunity for people to hear more about it so they can hit you up and go down there and check out the shoals themselves. But yeah, man, between everything, grabbing the wind, training, and running an off-road training facility, I know you got a lot on your plate. Looking forward to the rest of the season and watching how you handle everything this year. And thank you so much for your time, for coming on the show once again, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man. I'm looking forward to what you've got in the future as well.
Yeah. Appreciate it. I made a little.
Maybe I get to interview you here in a little while.
I made a little note right there when you started talking about the moto and the cross training and people lacking at the moto. So maybe, who knows? Maybe there'll be something to help out with that here in the future.
Maybe so. You let me know whenever you want to do your interview. We'll flip the script.
Sounds good, man. I'm gonna hold you to it.
All right. See you, boss.
We'll see you.